Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the City Center Community Committee for Monday, November 18th. With me here today via Zoom is Councillor Orlico. In person is Councillor Rollins, and we have our clerk with us here today. And we do have some members of the public that's with us here today as well. So first, I'd like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota people, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. And our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. First up, do we want to do the new business, adding on the new business first?
First, can we suspend the rules to allow Council to?
Oh, yeah.
So moved, Councillor Orlico remote. So
Okay.
moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
So moved, new business.
Okay, new business. Councillor Orlico, do you want to move the new business item or?
Pertaining to Tamarack Recovery Center and permit fee waiver.
I'll need to see it in writing first.
That's fair. I haven't seen it either.
Okay, maybe we'll get that. We'll add the new business item.
When we get
and
there.
We'll deal with it
fair.
when we get there. Okay.
Can you do it right after we?
Okay, so
adopt the minutes.
okay,
So moved adoption of the minutes from the
Favor?
previous meeting.
motion's carried. Okay, the only item that we have on today's agenda is under reports is speed limit reduction on Wellington Crescent.
Excuse me, Councillor. Should not that be also, is because it's posted after, does that not require us to vote to put it on the agenda, or is that already set? I know Councillor Rollins is a little bit late, but I believe it had to be brought on. We have to agree to put it on the agenda today. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. So I guess we need a motion to add that. Councillor Rollins, are you
So moved.
okay? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, motion is carried. All right. Councillor Rollins.
Thank you. I want to first of all thank the clerks for and the community committee for my accepting the motion given my tardiness in putting it onto the motion. I missed a very important call at about 10 after 9 on Tuesday following the long weekend. So I want to thank my colleagues. Generally at City Center, as you know, we work in consensus, but sometimes meetings like this happen, and I appreciate your understanding. The resolution before us in the speed limit reduction on Wellington Crescent follows a spring and a summer unlike any other that I've experienced as a counselor. And I want to say that it isn't often that you hear calls for the community that is so resoundingly clear, and also calls from the community that are born really of trauma. And I want to thank the 3 individuals that are sitting before me. Mark Coho, who has been an enduring voice at council and recent recipient of Winnipeg's 150 Award, Steve West, who is my ward resident, and Wendy Van Loon, who basically today I want us to answer her call and answer her family's call, who, following the tragic death of her husband, called out to the city of Winnipeg and really called out for change. And it's a change that I know Together Council is committed to seeing no road-related deaths. It's a change that's born of a horrible tragedy that's really still unfolding, and it is a trouble following the tragedies in the springtime. Of course, it was not even the first road related accident that day. I was called with 2 ward residents concerned of 2 accidents that day. And one ended really tragically. Flash forward a couple months later, another call, another accident, a young person thrown right in front of their parents on Wellington. There's not a day that goes by, basically, that St. Mary's Academy's fence isn't plowed down by a car. We know that part of Wellington has some high volumes, enough to smash a metal fence at St. Mary's, enough to result in tragic deaths, enough to make me fearful of the pedestrians going to and from St. Mary's, going to and from Westgate School, going to and from Earl Grey School, going to and from Neverandri School, going to and from St. Ignatius School, going to and from Calvin School. It is a very frequent place where parents walk to daycares, walk to schools, and students do too. The Wellington Crescent between Academy Road, River and Stradbrook Avenue is the busiest. It currently has no cycling facilities. It forces people oftentimes to ride either in mixed traffic or along a sidewalk when people, bikes, cars oftentimes can't be separated. And that's clear as evidenced by the St. Mary's fence. So today I'm asking that the community committee ask the public service and the SPC Public Works to reduce speed limit on Wellington Crescent from River Avenue to Kenaston to 30 km until such time as all ages, all abilities can be provided along this route to cycle, to walk, to drive safely. And that if it could be further resolved, that the public service be directed to work with community partners, including Bike Winnipeg, to support public engagement and prioritization of Wellington Crescent within the City of Winnipeg plans and priorities in the upcoming Transportation Master Plan 2050 and updated pedestrian and cycling strategies. The Transportation Master Plan 2050 is a solid document. I feel, and there was a briefing, I think, attached to this Appendix A on an update that I wrote to the community right in the summertime when I met with Steve and Mark Coho and Wendy about the gap that we've known to be the case in our priority network. The consultation on the Transportation Master Plan and pedestrian cycling documents that we can do locally, that we can do within, city center, and that I still hope to do in the spring. And really consider the partners of Bike Winnipeg to support the engagement and priorities, specifically Wellington Crescent as a priority that we know is really well used. So with that, I'll introduce the motion, and I know we have delegations that are here to speak to it.
Okay. All right, so moving on to the delegations. First up, we have Wendy Van Loon and Steve West speaking to report number 1, which is the speed limit reduction on Wellington Crescent. And they're joining us in person, so you're welcome to join us at the front.
Okay, it's my fault. My fault. Thank you. Morning.
Morning.
Morning. You have up to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Good morning, Mr. Chairperson and members of the City Center Community Committee. Excuse me. My name is Wendy Van Loon, and I'm here to express my full support for Councillor Sherry Rollins' motion to implement a year-round 30-kilometer-per-hour limit on Wellington Crescent between River Avenue and Keniston Boulevard. This year in particular has been a tragic year on that stretch for cyclists and pedestrians. For what we know, there has been one fatality, one serious injury, and 3 documented near misses. You may have heard some or all of these in the news, but I heard one in particular on my front doorstep. On June 6th, as the policemen were loudly knocking on my door and I fearfully opened the door, it was then that the 2 policemen shared the horrific, tragic news that my husband was struck and killed on his bicycle on Wellington Crescent while he was on his way to work. I always told my husband to be safe and take caution when going to work, especially down Wellington Crescent, but that is currently the road that connects our house to his work. I've since learned that it's a crucial missing link in what cyclists call the bicycle network. I'm just learning of all these things, but I've been spending a lot of time walking around the Crescent in the past few months, and cyclists aren't the only ones in danger on Wellington Crescent. The road's width makes it nearly impossible for pedestrians to cross safely when drivers exceed the 50K speed limit. This area sees many families with strollers and numerous seniors living in the buildings along the road, all of whom are at greater risk. Slowing speeds down will also make it safer for transit users. Although it's too late for my husband, Rob Jenner, to benefit from separated bike lanes and lower speed limits on Wellington Crescent, I don't want it to be too late for other families, for myself or my grandchildren. Thank you.
Chairperson and members of the committee, my name is Steve West, and just for full disclosure, both Wendy and I are members of the community, but we also volunteer with Bike Winnipeg. I'm here to express my support for Councillor Rollins' motion to reduce the speed on Wellington Crescent from 15 to 30 kilometers an hour. It's common for me to encounter drivers who exceed the speed limit on Wellington Crescent, whether I'm on foot, on bike, or in a car. The roadway is very wide, encouraging drivers to speed. Frequent disregard for the speed limit poses a significant danger to all road users. My wife, a daily walker on the Crescent, only crosses at controlled crossings and with a green light. And despite her caution, she has had numerous close calls with drivers who are not on the lookout for pedestrians. I am an experienced cyclist, but my confidence level drops when I am on Wellington. Many drivers pass cyclists without leaving sufficient space for us to navigate around a pothole or a hazard. And as much as I avoid Wellington, it's a critical east-west link in the bike route network without any reasonable alternatives. My confidence riding on Wellington was further shaken this year when on June 26th, I had a near miss incident on on Wellington near the Coburn intersection. Riding where I was supposed to be, in the curb lane, close to the curb, I suddenly noticed in my peripheral vision a bus moving close to me. I immediately braked. The bus proceeded into my lane, then back into the median lane. The driver was weaving around a car stopped in the center lane to turn. As my incident highlights, weaving of traffic is a common and dangerous problem, especially at speed. Mark Coho, the executive director of Bike Winnipeg, was riding behind me that day and saw the incident. He believed that if I hadn't braked, the bus would have hit me. The need for protected bike infrastructure on Wellington Crescent is clear, as is the need for safety interventions to reduce car-pedestrian conflicts. In the meantime, a speed reduction is crucial to slow drivers and calm traffic for the safety of everyone on foot, on bikes, and in cars. Thank you very much.
Any questions to the delegation? Thank you. No, I did, and I do want to recognize, I'm so sorry for your loss, and thank you for sharing your story here today. I know that must have been hard, so thank you for that. All right, seeing no other questions, the motion, you can have your seat, you can go back to the gallery, thank you. I always, is there other delegations?
Yes, so
Yeah,
next
okay.
we have Atul Sharma joining us over Zoom.
Okay.
So Atul, you can unmute your microphone and join us.
Okay, I think I just did that. And I'll bring up the document I wanted to share with you, which should have been circulated as well. Just a second. Sorry, bear with me while I.
Bill's not in. 2 minutes.
Sorry. My apologies. So I should introduce myself. I'd like to thank the chair of this committee, and also I'd like to thank the committee members and the delegates who appeared before me for their germane comments. By way of introduction, my wife Celia and I live right here at the corner of Harrow, in a small bungalow at the corner of Harrow and Wellington Crescent, which, as you will know, is just at the corner of the point where the bike path on Wellington Crescent begins. So we have followed with interest and admired the work you've done in recent years, particularly the pilot project on reduced speeds and the enhanced summer bike routes, as well as the extensive public consultation that you've done around these issues, and kudos for that work. My wife and I moved to Winnipeg 11 years ago from Montreal. We recently retired as academic pediatricians from the University of Manitoba and the University Health Center, or Health Sciences Center. And we have had a long-standing interest in recreational services that directly affect children in our communities. Over the years, we've been involved in bike routes spanning several Canadian and American cities. And moreover, although we're both retired from clinical work, I continue to work as a consultant biostatistician at the university. And I mention that so that you'll understand my bias toward data-driven policies. And I wish to share with you today some of the data that I believe is pertinent to this discussion. As I mentioned, from our living room window, we have a front row seat on the day-to-day operation of the bike paths along the Crescent, and it's really been interesting to witness its evolution. In the first year of the summer bike path, you'll probably recall that there was a fair amount of griping or even acrimony about conflicts between pedestrians and cyclists on one hand and motorists on the other. And since then, I'm really encouraged to see how smoothly things have gone, with the exception of the horrific incidents that others have reported. And I'm hoping, I don't know whether this reflects a gradual adaptation to the reality of the bike path, or whether or not the lower speed limit, the 30 kilometers per hour in summer, has led to sort of a diminution in tempers. But we've been very encouraged by the striking evidence of cooperation from what we just see from our window. As pediatricians, we recognize the role of safe and accessible recreational facilities in promoting child health. And we are both tickled to see children on foot, skateboards, and bicycles able to enjoy the park-like serenity of our street. And I would like to make it clear, and I'm speaking obviously personally at this point, that although we are occasionally inconvenienced by living on the bike route, I can assure you that any delay due to the reduced speed limit and the presence of bicycle is inconsequential, and we regard it as a small price to pay for expanding recreational opportunities for children and families in our neighborhood. Another personal observation that I need to share is the fact that a few years ago I became seriously handicapped, which means that I require a walker or an adaptive bicycle to enjoy the peaceful tree-lined boulevard on which I live. And I therefore need to emphasize just how much safer I feel when cars on the Crescent are moving at more reasonable speeds. And you'll see some data on that momentarily. I will be honest, I sometimes resent able-bodied drivers who argue that the handicapped, like myself, prefer to race down the crescent in their cars at high speeds. They do not speak for me, and this has not been my experience or the experience of any others that I have met on the bike route in their walkers or adaptive cycles. So much for personal observations. Following your 2022 public consultation, it seems like 10 piloted routes were designated permanent year-round neighborhood greenways with a reduced speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour, along with traffic calming measures like speed bumps, new signage, and enhanced pedestrian crossings. Another 6 routes were labeled as enhanced summer bike routes, including Wellington Crescent with a summertime speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour. Now, data is difficult to find on the relationship between speed and injuries. But I had the sense from participating in those public discussions that the decisions ended up being motivated largely by traffic volumes. And for that reason, I can't help but worry whether the primary motivation was a reaction to the community surveys, which strikes me as a bad approach to policy since these surveys are not scientific, and it may be a bad precedent to adopt the premise that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Moreover, we really must consider additional safety data beyond traffic volume. And to this end, I'd like to introduce a comprehensive white paper on pedestrian and road traffic safety that was published by the U.S. National Highway Safety Association, or NHSA, which summarized injury and fatality rates in a number of large U.S. databases and in over 600 studies from 15 other countries besides the United States. While most of the report focused on U.S. data on accidents involving pedestrians and motor vehicles, what little Canadian data we do have suggests that Canada and the U.S. are similar in terms of fatality and injury rates. And as you can see in this figure, sorry, my cursor isn't working, but as you can see here, if we look at pedestrian or bicyclist injuries or fatalities, this is in a paper from the Canadian Journal of Public Health a few years ago, we see that they're very similar between the US and Canada and between bicyclists and pedestrians. So I think that what data we do have, limited as it is, does suggest that we can rely on US data to some extent to formulate policy. And if you can accept that premise, and I hope you can, it behooves us to look more carefully at the data. There are a number of points that we can glean from the NHSA white paper. Firstly, they cite numerous studies on the relationship between motor vehicle speeds and pedestrian outcomes. If you look at the first row here,
What do I do when they call me? What do I do?
sorry, if you look at the first row here, I hope you can see it. You see that the fatality rate triples when motor vehicle speed goes from less than 32 kilometers per hour to 40 kilometers per hour, which is striking. And you can see from the bottom row that these conclusions are based on thousands of accident reports. If you look at the penultimate row, just before that bottom row, you'll also see that there was a 1/3 reduction in the number of pedestrians escaping with minor injuries. Again, as the speed went from 30 kilometers per hour to 34 to 40 kilometers per hour. So clearly, the U.S. data, safety data, suggests that pedestrians are much more likely to be injured or killed when the speed makes a relatively small increase from 30 to 40 kilometers per hour. This figure is also of interest to me as a retiree. I should point out, though, first that given your own speed data, we have to take care to distinguish between posted speed limits and actual vehicle speeds. In most jurisdictions, and particularly a large study in Denmark, a decrease in posted speed limit by 10 kilometers per hour saw a reduction in traveling speed of only 2 to 3 kilometers per hour. And for that reason, the data I'm presenting today are based on examples using actual speeds from CCTV or police accident reconstructions instead of posted speed limits. And this discrepancy is particularly important given the non-compliance in your own speed data, where the 85th percentile was 40 kilometers per hour in 30 kilometer per hour zones. To this point, there are interesting data from California where urban speed limits were decreased in some areas and increased in others in the same cities. And unexpectedly, actual speeds went up in all areas. And investigators concluded that consistency matters if you want people to comply with the posted limits. And I do worry about this phenomenon when we start varying our posted limits between nearby neighborhoods that are otherwise similar, like Wolseley and River Heights. This particular figure worries me as a retiree. It looks at the relationship between.
Sorry, I just have to stop you. I'm sorry, you're over your 10 minutes.
Okay, can I just have 30 seconds to summarize this figure?
Okay, 30 seconds.
Yeah, so if you look at this is the relationship on the x-axis between vehicle speed and on the y-axis between death rates. And basically you can see that over 65, which we retirees are, the risk of dying at any speed is 5 times higher. And again, you see the relationship between speed and death rates. I urge you therefore to adopt the recommendation of the Transportation Association of Canada, who recommend a speed limit of 30 kilometers per hour along shared roadways. I apologize for going over time and I thank you for your patience.
No, and thank you very much for being here in delegation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, and next we have Bill Hamlin joining us over Zoom, speaking to report number 1. So Bill, if you'd like to unmute your Zoom meeting and join us with your camera, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
All right, Oh, it's not letting me start the video. There.
There you go. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Good morning. I'm another resident living on Wellington Crescent, and I also strongly support the motion to reduce the speed limit and to work towards more permanent solutions. As a frequent driver, cyclist, and pedestrian on the Crescent, I am a frequent driver, cyclist, and pedestrian on the Crescent. Until I retired, I commuted downtown by bike throughout the year, and I'm an active member of the cycling community. The various submissions do a great job of outlining the need for the speed reduction, and rather than trying to repeat all of those excellent points, I will simply endorse them. I'll use my time to share my experiences and perceptions as a resident. It's clear that a large portion of the traffic that is currently on the Crescent is taking advantage of the long roadway extending all the way from Assiniboine Park to the Maryland Bridge. This stretch is free from any stop signs or red lights. This traffic appears to be largely motivated by speed and convenience. The drivers going at the speed limit are routinely pressured from behind to go faster, and impatient drivers will pass on the right, bringing them closer to cyclists at higher speeds. The status quo is not a safe situation. However, under the enhanced summer bike route, we see an alternative approach, and that delivered significant benefits. Traffic speeds were reduced, drivers appeared more attentive, I as a cyclist felt safer, more cyclists and pedestrians used the Crescent. My neighborhood is significantly less noisy. Time spent on the Crescent is more enjoyable, more time is spent talking to friends and community on the Crescent, and this helps to foster an enhanced sense of community, as well as links between communities as people all come together to share this space. The increased bike and foot traffic, I believe, tends to reduce crime. And as Dr. Sharma indicated, the 30 kilometers an hour does not significantly increase my driving times either. The additional time for most trips is a matter of seconds. To travel the full length of the Crescent would add a maximum of 3 minutes, and this is not a significant inconvenience to make my neighborhood safer for everyone. And while these benefits are available seasonally under that program, slower speeds are important throughout the year. I see children biking to and from the many schools in the area, and this happens during the busiest commuter traffic portions of the day. I worry about their safety. Winnipeg is a winter city. My perception is that there are many more cyclists and walkers and runners on Wellington in the winter than on many of the other streets designated as greenways have in the summer. And that this active transport is happening with higher densities of vehicle traffic as well. During the winter, I've witnessed several accidents where vehicles have lost control on the many bends in this road. I had a personal incident while running and looked up to see a car sliding towards me sideways. Fortunately, it stopped before hitting me. Incidents like this would not occur at slower speeds. I should also note that this is not an exclusively a winter problem. As an accident happened in front of our house this morning, this accident involved two cars and narrowly avoided a cyclist that was present. Changing speed limits seasonally confuses and frustrates everyone. The transition periods are a particular concern as cyclists are assuming a safer road, while drivers are still confused and not yet compliant with lower speeds. Having a fixed lower speed throughout the year will result in common expectations and greater compliance. If I were to make one friendly amendment, it would be to ensure that the 30-kilometer limit would extend further west past Kenaston to at least where Academy intersects, or even better, all the way to Assiniboine Park. And this would help foster, again, a consistent speed expectation all along Wellington Crescent. To conclude, I strongly support this motion and applaud the leadership in bringing it forward. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today. And while we need to continue working together towards more permanent solutions, reducing the speed is needed, and it's needed today. Thank you.
Thanks for your presentation. I don't see any other questions, but thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome.
All right. So next we have Sharon Kirk joining us over Zoom. Sharon, if you'd like to unmute your player.
We can't hear you, Sharon. Nope, not yet.
Okay, you need to unmute your player.
There we go. Good now?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you all for the opportunity for me to express my thoughts on keeping the speed limit on Wellington Crescent at 30 kilometers an hour all year long, 24/7. I have lived on Wellington Crescent for approximately 12 years. And so I have seen firsthand the impact of the speed limit has on the citizens using this street. Pedestrians, joggers, cyclists, and vehicle drivers themselves. There's absolutely no doubt that when the street has a speed limit of 30 kilometers, it is a much safer space for all. Once the speed limit is raised to 50, Wellington Crescent becomes a more dangerous space for the citizens using the street. Vehicles often drive at speeds in excess of 50 kilometers an hour, causing this residential street to become an unsafe space. A huge issue is that with 2 lanes in each direction, vehicles often pass other vehicles in the right-hand lane, traveling at 50 kilometers or more. This is where the cyclists are traveling, and this put these cyclists at great risk of being hit by a car traveling at high speeds. Just this morning at 8:45 in front of my home, there was an accident where a vehicle swerved to avoid missing a cyclist and hit another vehicle. Luckily, no one was hurt. However, unfortunately, this is not an uncommon occurrence, near misses for cyclists being almost hit by vehicles. Therefore, I do believe that a 30-kilometer speed limit on Wellington Crescent all year long is needed to keep everyone safe here, particularly the cyclists traveling in the right-hand lane. As well, the 30-kilometer zone should be extended to River Avenue. Wellington Crescent is a major corridor for cyclists commuting from the suburbs to downtown for work. The city needs to be proactive and make Wellington Crescent a safe space for these cyclists. In June of 2024, a cyclist was hit by a car on Wellington Crescent and tragically did not survive. We cannot let another tragedy like this occur. We must protect our citizens who are commuting to school or work or cycling for pleasure on this street. We need to keep our cyclists safe. When the speed limit is 50 kilometers an hour, I no longer cycle on Wellington Crescent, my own street. I have seen far too many near misses for cyclists when vehicles are passing other vehicles in the right-hand lane at speeds of 50 kilometers or more. A 30-kilometer speed limit would keep everyone using the street much safer. Pedestrians crossing the street, cyclists, rollerbladers, and the vehicle drivers themselves. I would like to share a photo with you of an accident that occurred in front of my home in February of 2023 on Wellington Crescent. Hoping that you can see this. This car was traveling at a high speed, lost control, and drove right up onto the pedestrian walkway, which is right here. The car was stopped by the lamppost. As you can see, the car was going so fast that it knocked the lamppost over. Luckily, it was a really cold day. There were few pedestrians out, so no pedestrian was hurt. With a 30-kilometer speed limit instead of 50, as it was that day, the driver would likely not have lost control and driven up onto the pedestrian walkway. This photo illustrates that we also need to think of the multitude of pedestrians that are using Wellington Crescent all year long when the speed limit is being set. A 30-kilometer speed limit all year long could save lives. There are many pedestrians and cyclists using Wellington Crescent throughout the winter. They deserve a safe space to walk, jog, and cycle. Ideally, at some point, other traffic calming measures, such as three-way stops and speed bumps, would make the street a safer space for all. However, keeping the speed limit at 30 kilometers all year long would have an immediate effect on the safety. Across the river in Wolseley, the speed limit is 30 kilometers all year long, creating a much safer environment there for cyclists, pedestrians, and vehicle drivers. I believe we should have the same speed limit on this south side of the river. In conclusion, it is my great hope that the speed limit on Wellington Crescent can be maintained at 30 kilometers an hour, 24/7, all year long, and extending this 30-kilometer zone to River Avenue. This will keep everyone using the streets safe: pedestrians, cyclists, rollerbladers, and vehicle drivers themselves. Academy, Corydon, Grant, and Taylor are all available for drivers who prefer to drive at 50 kilometers. Wellington Crescent is a residential street used by multitudes of people for walking, jogging, and cycling all year round. They deserve to be safe all year long. Keeping the speed limit at 30 kilometers all year long, all the way to River Avenue, would make Wellington Crescent a safer street for everyone. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Karen, and thanks for coming in delegation.
All right, and we have Mark Coho joining us in person. Welcome to come join us.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to you today. Bike Winnipeg strongly supports the motion to reduce the speed limit on Wellington Crescent between River Avenue and Kenaston to 30 kilometers an hour, at least until such time as a low-stress, all-ages abilities cycling route can be provided along this route. As you've heard today, really Wellington Crescent is a primary route in the city bike network. It's a key facet of that network. It really connects people to key bridges leading into West Broadway, whether that's the Maryland bridges or the Osborne Bridge, into the West Broadway and downtown, as well as into Osborne Village, key areas. And it's really almost a funnel kind of leading into those areas for people further west and to the south. Winnipeg's climate and transportation plan calls for the number of people walking and biking to double or triple during the coming years, and as a key part of our transition to a sustainable future. So we really should be expecting to see a pretty significant influx of new riders coming in the future years. Certainly, that's a goal. As we've heard today, tragically, the recent death of Rob Jenner as he biked to work on June 6th has really highlighted the lack of cycling facilities along Wellington Crescent. And that shock of Rob's death was compounded by news that a teenager was injured in a collision on Wellington Crescent in July. Collisions and near misses have been far too frequent on Wellington Crescent, and we need to see changes along Wellington Crescent to ensure that a safe route is provided to all users of this critical route. On a 4-lane road with an average of over 15,000 vehicles a day, people biking along Wellington Crescent currently must mix with traffic. While people on bikes average 15 to 20 kilometers an hour, vehicle speeds are set to 50 kilometers an hour, but we know that they're often exceeding those speeds along Wellington Crescent. This is not safe, and we need to see actions taken immediately to improve safety along Wellington Crescent. Reducing the speed to a limit of 30 kilometers an hour would put speeds on Wellington Crescent in line with the recommended speeds for roadways that lack separated facility cycles. That is, roads where people on bikes must mix with motorized vehicles. For instance, the Transportation Association of Canada guidelines for bikeway design recommend a speed of 30 kilometers an hour along roadways where people are expected to cycle in a shared space with vehicles. So, really, we want to see us get this done, and I'm thrilled to see this motion moving forward. We're also really happy to see the motion before the committee directs the public service to work with community partners, including Bike Winnipeg, to support engagement and prioritization of Wellington Crescent within the city's plans and priorities in the upcoming transportation master plan and the update to the pedestrian and cycling strategies. It's really important that we start working on solutions to provide all users of Wellington Crescent with safe, comfortable transportation options. Residents and through travelers alike deserve a safe roadway that provides separated travel for those on foot and bike, that provides safe crossing opportunities for those on foot and bike, as well as those entering and exiting driveways and side streets with their vehicles. And most importantly, we need a roadway that encourages safe interactions between users at safe speeds. We want to see a roadway design where the prudent driver sets the pace of the roadway, something that really isn't the case now. Finally, it should be noted that the redesign of Wellington Crescent to improve cycling facilities also offers an opportunity to improve conditions for people walking along Wellington Crescent, as well as those making use of transit on Wellington Crescents. Winnipeg's transit master plan states that bus stops need to be constructed in pairs with safe, accessible crossings between them. Improved pedestrian crossings can be included in the reconfiguration of Wellington Crescent, providing better access to transit and the growing number of condos and apartments along Wellington Crescent. There's a huge demand for walking and cycling in this neighborhood. Improvements to walking conditions will be welcomed and will aid us in reaching our targets for increased walking and biking trips, and biking trips, as well as reaching our safety targets, our Vision Zero goal of seeing no one killed and no one seriously injured on that street. Similarly, an improved roadway design that better accommodates left turns onto driveways and side roads would be welcome and would help reduce weaving of traffic on Wellington, a known factor in collisions. So thank you very much for your time. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Seeing no questions, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Councillor Rowlands, on to the motion. I think did you read it out already?
I for sure read out the resolution.
Yeah.
I won't do that again. I'll just close by saying, thanking all that have been in delegation. I really appreciate, obviously the evidentiary basis that Mr. Sharma presented, Dr. Sharma, I apologize. The concepts of all road users that both Dr. Sharma and Bill Hamlin presented when they said I'll be able to get out of my driveway easier. And certainly I think that that will be the case for many of the condos that I have along Wellington, who oftentimes complain they can't even get out of their residence because traffic is moving so fast and they're routinely calling with accidents. I want to be clear, we're here perhaps because of Mr. Jenner and the tragedy that befell the Jenner and Wendy Van Loon. For sure, a call out from a widow is uncharacteristic of my job, thank God. But we're here because of the preponderance of evidence that maybe if we get 30 kilometers, we'll actually get 40, and that will save lives. We will actually see less damage from the transit shops to the St. Mary's Academy fence to the heart attack inducing near misses that we see. The crosswalk between what is John Orlico's side and my side, where both of us are on the roadway worrying about people with walkers getting across, thinking that we have to actually get out of our car and help them across. All of that is mitigated and lessened with 30 kilometers because, like the evidence says, if you force 30, you may get 40, and that will save lives. So I don't have much more to say in closing.
Okay, Councillor Orlikow.
There we go. Thank you very much. Let me put my hand down. Again, thank you for people who come out today. This motion was kind of a shock to me. Councillor Rollins brought it in last minute, and we had talked about going up to Academy because that kind of had that little joining area. I was shocked to find out that it also included all the way to the bridge. And why I was shocked is that we're doing an amazing amount of work right now on this option. On what we're going to do in the future. We just did change the enhanced bike path last year because we had some comments and concerns about it, including administration. So we went through all that process, and we'll go through that process again this winter. We're going to review the data on how the 30K worked, even in the bridge seasons after the summer. That was kind of a newer thing this year. So I'm also shocked that we would, as councillors, would decide to be traffic engineers. I think that's quite a new step for me. I've been around for a while. Back in the day, we couldn't even mention traffic. It had to go to the province. So I'm also a little shocked that there's no referral to an administration report. I think it's a good idea. We don't need the data, as Councillor Toole said. He wanted data, but we don't need it. We just believe it's right. So therefore, we're going to go for it without consulting the neighborhood or even discussing it with other people. So there's a number of reasons there that find this motion a little almost. And bottom line is, I'm happy to be convinced, but again, not from a specific group and not on a reactionary basis. But does the 30K actually improve safety on the stretch of Wellington Crescent? I'm a little concerned as well where Councillor Rollins' word is, but I would have left that to her. But again, I am not 100% convinced based upon the phone calls that I've been getting for quite a few of them. It hasn't stopped where the conflicts are happening between cars that are going 30 and 50 and the people are pissed off and they blow by them at 70. Like as was said by another person before, they take if they're in the left lane, they'll take the right lane where the cyclists are. And they get so frustrated, they blast through there. So I would need to have at least an opportunity, which I was never given that opportunity to discuss this with the administration prior. So for that reason, I won't be supporting Councillor Rollins' motion, but I do have an amending motion that I think can still move this forward. I think the clerk has a copy of it, and I'll just read it out loud. Therefore, be resolved that the motion be referred to the reduced speed limit neighborhood pilot study, expected to come back to council February 2025, and to include all enhanced summer bike routes for consideration. And that'll allow us an opportunity to get a report. It'll allow us an opportunity to have the discussion with the public. It'll allow us opportunities as councillors to look at the data and share that data. I know people just want to get it done today, but I'm not comfortable with that yet. If I had more time, maybe I would have been, but I wasn't given that time. So I'm just kind of boxed into the corner here. So I won't be supporting Councillor Rollins' motion, but I will be asking the council committee to support my amending motion.
Councillor Rollins?
I appreciate what I never intend to shock or awe our city center committee. Generally speaking, we sort of know what each other are doing, and so I through you, Madam Chair, I regret that if it wasn't clear that I'd been working on this for some time. I like I said at the beginning, it was a motion that I was working on. Most notably, I noted it last city center committee when you put forward a road safety motion, Madam Chair. That being said, I'd prefer, I'd prefer if we could amend this motion to request 30 kilometers until such time that a low stress, all ages, abilities cycling route can be provided along this route forward. But I hear what Councillor Orlikow said, and note that I too have been written by folks in River Heights, Fort Garry to stick to my lane, so to speak, and would and for discussion, Councillor Orlikow, would it be amenable if it because I hear what he said about the length of it, and that he was shocked at the length of it. And I did get a note from him about that in my office. I'd be willing to reduce the scope of it if it could go forward, where it begins, because my ward essentially takes off around Academy Road. And I'm wondering if that would be amenable so that we could get at least a component of this, if we could, 30 kilometers until such time that a cycling route can be provided along this route. Then I'm wondering if that would be amenable in order to still have the Committee of Public Works consider that. We have come a long way in the city of Winnipeg where the Standing Policy Committee of Public Works, Councillor Orlikow's right. Last term, we actually had to do a lot of work to say, to ensure that the province delegated us our speeds in the city. We used to have to go to the province. And so with that delegation, that was a big change last term. Whereas in fact, it was a change, we're still figuring it out. So I'm wondering if he would be amenable if we amended it just to the portion of my ward. We do share that portion too, but it would change the scope. And my intention was that likely you and I would go to Public Works and ask for that change of scope, but it would pass today and then we'd clarify at Public Works. But if in order to get your support, I would change the motion.
I'm seeing a nod. Councillor Orlikow, do you want to?
Yeah, again, in an imperfect world, I understand where Councillor Rollins is coming from. I'm still not 100% sure about if the arbitrary changing of 30K is the proper process for that area. but I'm willing to give that, again, for my portion is the St. Mary's Schools there. And it's chaos sometimes in the morning. It's really tight with just one lane on each side. At least that I could be okay to put forward. I'd still talk to the administration and see what their views on it. I was hoping they'd be here today. But that'll give me time to at least talk about that portion. So I'd be amenable if it stopped at Academy, yes, from Stradbrook to Academy.
Okay. All right, so do we need time to rewrite the motion? Are we clear?
Well, to clarify, we are no longer going with Councillor Orliko's amending motion. We're gonna stay with the motion as brought forward by Councillor Rollins. And the change is that therefore it be resolved that the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works be requested to direct the Winnipeg Public Service to reduce the speed limit on Wellington Crescent from River Avenue to Academy Road to 30 kilometers an hour until such time that a low stress, all ages and abilities cycling route can be provided along this route.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that that's correct. And I'll just put, I guess I'll put a little bit of my thoughts on the table. I mean, it would be very hypocritical for me to say I don't support 30. It's obviously I do. I fought really hard to get Wolseley a 30 zone. For me, I want to be clear that I think there needs to be a lot more conversation. Some of these accidents happened where people that were going really dangerous speeds. So those, we're not stopping anybody when we're reducing speeds to 30 if they're not following the laws and being unsafe drivers. And I think there needs to be more work around that. Having said that, some of these areas, and I think Wellington Crescent is kind of one of them, it's a lot more than just speeds to also slow down traffic and the calming of traffic. But it is nice to be able to have some areas where you have a reduction of traffic. And, you know, along the river there, it is a beautiful walk. And so that is an area I think that it really should be for everybody, and reducing the speeds along there to me makes sense. That's kind of just how I go, and I think for me, it's, I've already made that decision. So I don't really need the public administration to come back with a report. For me, it's, I guess, a philosophical decision I've made on where to reduce speeds. So, and I think that street fits into it. So I support it. I do hope though we can talk to one another though when we are putting motions forward, especially if they're affecting other committees. So I want to thank Councillor Rollins for listening to Councillor Orlikow, because I think it's important that we try to work together when we can. I know that sometimes philosophically we're not going to agree on everything, but I think this, you know, being able to try to work together is always a good thing. All right. So I put my, having said that, on the new motion that's in front of us here today. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, looks like everyone agreed. So
And this is an amended one. To be clear,
anyway.
by Councillor Rollins. Thank you.
Okay, so motion is carried.
Okay.
All right.
I have an item for new business.
Business item?
Yeah. This, in line with, the spirit of, I will, if I could, I'll get it on the agenda. And then if given that people are just reading it now, if you're not comfortable, happy to move it to the next, agenda. Because time isn't really of the essence here, in part. Tamarack, if I can introduce it, Madam Chair. So Tamarack Recovery Center is a recovery center in the ward that I represent. They have a number of fees relating to a variance, a conditional use, and a development permit at 60 Balmoral Street that they have incurred. You will recall, and you know, because we make up the housing committee. We at Planning Development have a building fees bylaw that enables us to reimburse fees relating to permits for not-for-profits in housing. And so the intention is that they would receive some of the money back. There's more to do with respect to housing, but That's the motion essentially. It goes to a fee waiver committee after that, and that's the motion. So, happy to move it today, but, in the spirit of introducing motions with some time.
Counselor Orlico?
Yeah, I don't mind putting an agenda, but yes, I'd like to, if it's not urgent, I'd like to refer this to the next community committee.
All right. So then that'll be just moved to the next community committee.
Yep, so laid over to the January sixth City Center Committee meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
Meeting motion to adjourn.
Meeting to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.